The sound of champagne glasses clinking echoed in the lavish ballroom, but Amanda Carter didn't hear it. She stood frozen, staring at the scene unfolding before her, every nerve ablaze with disbelief and fury. Her husband, Eric Knight, the man she had trusted with her heart, her love, her life was smiling. And next to him, her best friend, laughing with him like they shared some secret she had no part of. Amanda's chest tightened, her hands, trembling slightly, gripped the crystal stem of her glass. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. 2 people she had loved, 2 people she had trusted, had betrayed her in the most ruthless way imaginable. And the cruelest part? They didn't even try to hide it. In that moment, Amanda realized the life she thought she had, the life she had believed was filled with love, respect, and partnership, had been nothing but an illusion. Eric would divorce her, take what he wanted, and leave her with nothing but the echo of betrayal. But as Amanda's gaze hardened, a spark ignited in her chest, a quiet, deadly fire. They had taken everything from her. Everything except one thing. Her resolve. And that they could never steal. 2 years from now, they would see the woman they thought they had destroyed, and they would wish with every ounce of their being that they had never underestimated her. Amanda Carter would rise. And when she did, there would be no mercy. The soft pop of champagne echoed through the penthouse like a promise. Amanda Carter smiled faintly as she poured the golden liquid into 2 crystal glasses, the same set Eric had bought when his first company finally hit its first million. Tonight was supposed to be special, their 10th wedding anniversary, a night to celebrate everything they'd built together. The candles she'd lit along the hallway flickered, throwing warm light against the marble floors. The smell of vanilla and roses wrapped around her like a warm memory. She'd spent hours cooking his favorite dinner: garlic butter steak, truffle pasta, and chocolate mousse. She wanted it to be perfect. She wanted them to be perfect again. Amanda glanced at the clock. 8:17 p.m. He was late, again. She smoothed her silk robe, tucking one loose curl behind her ear. The robe hugged her soft brown skin like a whisper, the deep red fabric flowing down her legs. 10 years. 10 long years of sacrifices, of holding him up, of believing that love was enough. When she heard the elevator ding, her heart fluttered with relief. She grabbed the glasses and walked toward the bedroom. She wanted to surprise him the way she used to when they were young and broke and madly in love. But when she pushed the bedroom door open, the world stopped. Laughter. Skin on skin. Her best friend's voice. Amanda's fingers froze around the stem of the champagne glass. There they were, Eric and Tessa tangled in the sheets of their bed, the same bed she had shared with him for a decade. Her best friend's head was thrown back in a soft moan as Eric kissed down her neck. His hands on her waist, his mouth whispering things that used to belong to Amanda. Her breath left her chest like a punch. For a second, everything blurred. Tessa gasped, snatching the blanket to cover herself. "Oh my God, Amanda!" Eric's head snapped up, his body stiffened. Naked, unashamed, caught. "Amanda!" His voice cracked, but his eyes, those cold blue eyes she once adored, didn't carry an ounce of regret. The glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the hardwood floor. Champagne splashed across the rug like a stain she'd never scrub out. "Wow," she whispered, her voice hollow. "My best friend. My husband. My bed." "Amanda, it's not. Don't." She cut him off, her voice sharp enough to slice through air. "Don't lie to me, not in my face." Tessa stammered, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Amanda laughed a soft, broken sound. Oh? So there was a better way to betray me? Should I have sent an invitation? She stared at Eric, the man she had loved, the man she had built empires with, the man she had trusted with every part of her soul. And suddenly, she didn't recognize him at all. 10 years. Gone in a heartbeat. Her chest burned, but her face stayed cold. She refused to let him see her cry. Not him. Not her. Not ever again. You just destroyed everything, she whispered. But I promise you this, Eric Knight. One day, you'll regret the moment you touched her. Amanda turned on her heel, silk robe trailing behind her like a queen walking away from a battlefield. Her heart was shattering inside, but something else was forming beneath the pain, something sharper, colder. She didn't know it then, but this was the night the woman he knew died. And a storm was born in her place. The divorce papers were a blur of black ink on white paper, but the words cut sharper than any blade. Amanda sat across from Eric in the conference room of his lawyer's sleek, glass-walled office. The air smelled of expensive cologne, polished wood, and finality. She kept her chin up, her expression blank, the mask she'd forced herself to perfect these past few weeks. Eric looked immaculate, as always. Crisp suit, watch gleaming on his wrist, hair slicked back like he hadn't just ripped her heart out and fed it to the tabloids. Tessa wasn't there. Of course not. Cowards never faced the mess they made. His lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter. Her jaw clenched. It's Amanda. The man gave an awkward nod. Amanda, as outlined in the settlement agreement, you'll be receiving a one-time payment along with... One-time payment? She cut in, her voice calm but sharp. 10 years of my life, and you're handing me a check? Eric's gaze flickered, the only sign she'd struck a nerve. Let's not be dramatic. She laughed, a low, bitter sound. Dramatic? Eric, I built your world with you. I stood by you when you had nothing but ambition and a borrowed office space. I supported you through sleepless nights and your obsession with success. And now, you're telling me I don't deserve a damn thing? His voice was cold, detached. You chose to stay home. You didn't build the company. Her fingers curled into fists under the table. I raised your image. I hosted your events. I smiled at people who disrespected me because they respected you. I turned myself into the perfect wife so you could shine. Don't you dare act like I was nothing. He leaned back in his chair, a smug smile tugging at his lips. This is business, Amanda, not personal. She stared at him, her heart pounding like a drum inside her chest. How could a man she once loved speak with so little soul? Everything with you is business, she whispered. Even love. The lawyer continued, his voice a dull hum in the background. Property, assets, accounts. All of it went to Eric. All the things she had once called home were now just legal terms in a file. In the end, she walked away with nothing more than a small apartment, a modest alimony, and a heart scorched black. When she signed the last page, her hand didn't shake. She refused to let him see her break. Eric rose from his seat, straightened his jacket, and said softly like a dagger hidden in silk, You'll thank me one day, Amanda. This is what's best for both of us. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for the first time, she saw him not as the man she loved, but as the enemy. You're right, she said quietly. I will thank you one day, when I make you choke on every word you just said. Eric froze, the smile faltering for half a second. just long enough for her to see it, the flicker of unease. She stood, grabbed her purse, and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. Outside, the city stretched beneath her like an endless storm. Cold wind bit at her face as she wrapped her coat around her shoulders. Everything she'd built, everything she'd loved, was gone. But as she looked at her reflection in the mirrored glass of the building, she saw something new in her eyes, something fierce. The girl who believed in love was gone. What remained was a woman with nothing left to lose. And when a woman has nothing left to lose, she becomes unstoppable. Amanda closed the door to her small apartment behind her and let out a long, shuddering breath. The walls were bare. The floors creaked. The air smelled faintly of mildew and stale heat. It wasn't home, not really, but was hers, the first thing she could call hers in a long, long time. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her silk robe still wrapped around her like a memory of a life she would never get back. Tears came hot and fast, streaking silently down her cheeks. She allowed herself this moment, just this one, before the rage set in. 10 years. 10 years of love, sacrifice, loyalty, and trust. And in a single night, it had all burned to ash. She thought of Eric, smiling at her while touching Tessa. The way his hands, once gentle with her, now belonged to someone else. The betrayal wasn't just about the sex or the lies, it was about the people she trusted the most. Amanda's chest ached, but something else stirred beneath the pain. A fire. She pressed her hands to her temples, whispering to herself, "You think you've won, Eric? You think you can take everything from me and walk away smiling?" Her jaw tightened. "You don't know me." And she didn't, not anymore. The Amanda who had believed in love, in devotion, in loyalty, she was gone. She pulled a notebook from her purse and flipped it open. In neat, deliberate handwriting, she began to write. Step 1, get stronger. Step 2, get smarter. Step 3, make him regret this for the rest of his life. The plan didn't feel fully formed yet, but it didn't need to. All she knew was that she would rise again. Not as Eric's wife, not as the woman he could control, but as Amanda Carter, untouchable, unstoppable, unforgettable. She pulled her laptop close, her fingers trembling with the rush of ideas. She began researching luxury markets, investment opportunities, and business mentors. She studied billionaire habits, learning how they thought, how they acted, how they conquered. Every article, every biography, every tiny lesson fed her fire. Night after night, she stayed awake, scribbling, reading, planning. She replaced the tears with strategies. She replaced heartbreak with knowledge. Amanda knew one thing for certain. Pain was temporary. Power was forever. And when she returned, Eric Knight would see her not as the woman he discarded, but as the force he could never control. The Amanda who had been broken tonight was still breathing, and breathing was just the beginning. She smiled to herself, a cold, determined smile. Tonight, she was alone. Tomorrow, the world would know her name. 2 years. 2 years of quiet work. 2 years of sacrifice. 2 years of learning to turn pain into power. Amanda Carter returned to the world a different woman. Gone was the tearful, betrayed wife who had walked out of Eric Knight's life with nothing. In her place stood a force that demanded attention. Her beauty had deepened, her confidence sharpened, and her mind honed like a razor could slice through the arrogance of any man who thought he could dismiss her. She had traveled the world, studying luxury markets, attending seminars with business moguls, and building connections that would make Eric's empire tremble. From Paris to Milan to New York, Amanda learned not just to survive, but to dominate. Her apartment in the city had grown into a sleek, modern office. The walls were lined with awards and photos of luxury launches she had spearheaded. Every corner reflected her new identity. Amanda Carter, untouchable, unstoppable, unforgettable. She sipped her espresso one morning, reviewing the quarterly reports of a small boutique brand she had just acquired. The numbers were good, strong, profitable, and as she looked at the projections, a familiar name flashed across the newsfeed. Eric Knight Enterprises. A smirk curved her lips. It was time. Amanda began planning her re-entry into the city she had once called home. Invitations to elite events, charity galas, and business conferences flooded her inbox. Each appearance would be calculated, precise, a public reminder that the woman Eric had discarded was now a queen, and she had grown far beyond his control. She allowed herself a private smile, imagining his shock when he saw her. The arrogance that had once been his shield would crumble when he realized just how much he had lost. But Amanda's rise wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming herself. Every late night of studying contracts, every trip overseas, every decision to invest and build her empire had been for her, not for Eric, not for Tessa, not for anyone. She had rediscovered her worth, her power, her fire. And now, she was ready to unleash it. In the quiet of her office, Amanda's phone buzzed. A message from an old contact, a fellow investor who had once doubted her, read, "Welcome back. The city won't know what hit it." She smiled, her eyes glinting like molten gold. No, the city would know, and so would Eric Knight. The countdown to her revenge had begun. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, the soft hum of conversation mixing with the clink of champagne glasses. The city's elite had gathered for the Knight Foundation Gala, a charity event hosted annually by Eric Knight and his fiancée, Tessa Reed. Amanda Carter paused at the entrance, taking in the room. Every detail, the glittering gowns, the polished men in tuxedos, the air of controlled wealth was familiar. She had once moved in these circles, smiled at these faces, and played the perfect wife. But tonight, she wasn't Amanda the obedient wife. She was Amanda the queen, returning to claim her throne. Her dress hugged her curves like liquid night, a deep emerald green that contrasted beautifully with her skin. Her heels clicked confidently across the marble floor. Hair swept elegantly to one side, a diamond necklace catching the light with every step. She was impossible to ignore. Eyes turned, whispers floated, cameras flashed. And then, in the corner of the room, he saw her. Eric Knight. Time slowed. His smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, as his eyes locked on hers. The man who had once held her heart now stared at a woman who could destroy him with just a look. Amanda walked forward, gliding past the crowd as if they weren't there. The whispers followed her like a wave. Is that Amanda Carter? She looks incredible. Tessa's hand went to her chest. Her engagement ring suddenly felt heavy. She hadn't expected Amanda to return. She hadn't expected her to be this. Eric's jaw tightened. He straightened, trying to mask the sudden rush of something he hadn't felt in years, fear. Not of Amanda herself, but of what she represented. Power, confidence, unstoppable fire. Amanda raised a perfectly arched eyebrow as she approached the stage where Eric and Tessa stood, their smiles stiff and rehearsed. Good evening, everyone. Amanda's voice was calm, confident, silk over steel. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. Applause followed, polite yet astonished. She scanned the room, landing on Eric, and gave him a small, polite smile, the kind that hides 1,000 secrets and a burning promise. The electricity between them was undeniable, desire and hatred intertwined like wildfire. Eric's voice caught in his throat as he muttered under his breath, "Amanda." She tilted her head, letting the sound of her name on his lips roll over her like a balm. Or a weapon. Tonight wasn't just a return. It was a declaration. Amanda Carter had come back, and she would not be ignored. Eric Knight's eyes followed Amanda across the ballroom, every step she took sending a jolt through him he hadn't felt in years. His mind raced, heart hammering in ways it hadn't since the night she walked out of his life. She was beautiful, absolutely radiant. Every curve, every movement, every subtle glance spoke of a woman transformed, powerful, confident, untouchable. The emerald dress she wore hugged her in all the right places, and the way she carried herself made him realize how little control he had over the emotions surging inside him. Tessa, standing beside him, noticed it too. "What is she doing here?" Tessa hissed, her voice barely audible over the gala chatter. "She shouldn't even be in this room." Eric didn't answer immediately. He was frozen, caught between a cocktail of emotions. Desire, anger, regret. He had thought he could move on, that Amanda's absence would be a relief. But seeing her now, alive, thriving, and untouchable, shattered every lie he had told himself. Amanda's gaze swept over the crowd, landing on Eric for just a fraction of a second longer than necessary. A small, deliberate smile curved her lips, polite, almost innocent, yet carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "I'm back, and you underestimated me." He swallowed hard. That smile was a dagger wrapped in velvet. Tessa's hands trembled. Why didn't she just stay gone?" she whispered, fury and fear lacing her tone. She reached instinctively for Eric's arm, but he pulled slightly away, almost unconsciously. "I don't know," he muttered, his voice tight. "But she's changed. Dramatically." Amanda moved closer to the stage, mingling effortlessly with the city's elite. Every interaction was calculated laughter at the right moment, a touch of the shoulder, a tilt of her head that commanded attention without demanding it. And all the while, Eric couldn't take his eyes off her. It wasn't just her beauty that held him captive. It was the fire in her eyes, the quiet confidence that screamed she had survived without him, and thrived. He had thought he could walk away from her. He had thought he could erase the memory of her, discard her like he had discarded Tessa's past relationships. But seeing her now, he realized just how wrong he had been. Amanda's smile widened slightly as if she could feel him unraveling. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it sent a shiver down his spine. Eric's mind raced. She's not just back, she's untouchable, and I want her, even after everything. Meanwhile, Tessa's eyes narrowed. She finally understood that Amanda was no longer the woman she had known. She wasn't afraid of Tessa. She was far beyond fear. And in that moment, Amanda Carter made her first move in the game of revenge. Not through words, not yet, but through a look, a presence, a fire that ignited something inside Eric he hadn't anticipated. He knew, deep down, the war between them had just begun. The gala ended, but Amanda didn't leave immediately. She lingered, moving through the crowd with ease, shaking hands, exchanging polite smiles, and planting seeds of influence wherever she went. Every nod, every subtle compliment, every laugh at just the right moment was calculated. She wasn't just back, she was taking her first steps toward reclaiming the empire Eric had thought he owned. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. A message from an old business contact read, "I see you're back. Let's talk. We have opportunities that could shake the city." Amanda smirked. Perfect. Moments later, she slipped away from the crowd, exiting into the quiet night. The city lights glimmered like diamonds beneath her as she made her way to a sleek black car waiting outside. The driver opened the door, and she sank into the leather seat, texting back, "I'll be there in an hour." An hour later, Amanda stepped into a private office high above the city, where glass walls gave a panoramic view of the skyline. She was greeted by Elijah Cole, a sharp-eyed investor in his early 40s, known for his ruthless business acumen and charm. "Amanda Carter," he said, rising to shake her hand. His grip was firm, confident, and commanding. "I've been following your work. I have to say, your return is impressive." Amanda's smile was cool, composed. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Mr. Cole." He laughed lightly. "Call me Elijah, and I'm not flattering, just stating facts. You've rebuilt yourself, your brand, your empire. Even from afar, you've made waves." She studied him carefully, noting the way he carried himself, the sharpness in his eyes, the way he didn't try to impress her, a rarity in a city full of men trying to climb over one another. "I've been away for a while," she said, "and I intend to make up for lost time." Elijah leaned back, assessing her. "Good, because I have a proposition. There are opportunities right now that could give you leverage over certain competitors, powerful people who think they can walk over you. I think we could help each other." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly do you want in return?" "Nothing," he said smoothly. "At least not yet. Consider it a mutual alliance. We help each other. You grow, I gain your insight. And if you're as sharp as they say, this could be very profitable." Her lips curved into a small, approving smile. He was honest, straightforward, rare, useful. Amanda's mind already raced with possibilities. With allies like Elijah, she could infiltrate Eric's world in ways he would never see coming. Every deal, every investment, every subtle move could be designed to undermine him without touching her name. "Then we have business to discuss," she said, her voice steady. "And perhaps some personal matters, too." Elijah's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "I like the sound of that." Amanda Carter had just made her first real ally, and together they would set the stage for the kind of revenge Eric Knight would never see coming. As she left Elijah's office that night, she felt the thrill of power coursing through her. For the first time since that night 2 years ago, Amanda smiled not just as a survivor, but as a woman ready to claim everything she had lost, and more. Amanda sat in her sleek glass-walled office, the city lights glittering like distant stars. Her laptop screen glowed with charts, investment portfolios, and news alerts. Every movement she made, every decision, was intentional. A thread in a web she was weaving around Eric Knight. 2 years of planning had led to this moment. She wasn't just back in the city. She was back with a purpose. Her phone buzzed with a notification. An insider tip from Elijah. A rival company of Eric's was looking for investors. With careful precision, Amanda moved her funds, becoming the company's major backer. One subtle email, one discreet meeting, one silent deal, and soon, Eric's competitors were stronger, faster, more profitable, and he had no idea Amanda was behind it. Every time she thought of him, her lips curved into a faint, almost cruel smile. The man who thought he had discarded her was about to find that the world had shifted and she was at the center of it. Her phone buzzed again. Another alert. This time, it was news of a high-profile contract Eric had been chasing. Amanda quietly maneuvered her influence so that the deal would slip through his fingers. Tick, tick, tick. Each move was a whisper, a shadow, a ghost in the machine. He wouldn't notice until it was too late. And while she plotted revenge on the corporate front, she also began orchestrating more subtle, personal touches. A whispered comment to an associate here, a strategically placed social media post there, small moves designed to unsettle Eric without drawing suspicion. It wasn't just business, it was psychological warfare. That night, as Amanda leaned back in her chair, sipping her espresso, she allowed herself a quiet moment of satisfaction. The trap was set. Every step she took from here on out would tighten around Eric's empire and his ego. He had made a fatal mistake, and Amanda Carter never forgot a betrayal. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Elijah. He's going to feel this sooner than he thinks. Are you ready? Amanda's eyes glimmered. More than ready, she typed back. Because when revenge is patient, calculated, and perfect, it doesn't just sting. It destroys. And Amanda Carter was ready to destroy. Eric Knight paced his office, hands running through his perfectly styled hair. The skyline of the city sprawled beneath him, glittering like a testament to the empire he had built, or so he thought. Over the past few weeks, deals that should have closed flawlessly had slipped through his fingers. Investors he considered loyal were suddenly backing rival companies. Reports he relied on had inexplicable gaps. The edges of his carefully constructed world were fraying, and he couldn't figure out why. What the hell is going on? He muttered, throwing a folder onto his mahogany desk. Tessa hovered nearby, biting her lip nervously. Maybe it's just bad timing? Competition? Eric's gaze snapped to her, sharp as steel. No, Tessa, this isn't bad timing. Someone is undermining us. Someone who knows exactly how we operate. Tessa's eyes widened. But who? He shook his head, rubbing his temples. I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're smart. Too smart. Meanwhile, across the city, Amanda Carter was calm. In her private office, she sipped her espresso, reviewing another set of reports. A subtle shift here, a strategic move there, and Eric's company was slowly, quietly wobbling. It was like watching a chessboard. Each piece she moved was designed to force him into positions he didn't even realize he was in. And Eric? He couldn't see the hand guiding the pieces. Amanda's lips curved into a small smile. The first cracks were showing, and she hadn't even made her presence fully known yet. He still had no idea she was behind this. She leaned back, eyes glimmering with anticipation. This was more than business. This was war, and the enemy didn't know it yet. She whispered under her breath, almost to herself. You thought you could erase me, Eric. But I'm everywhere you're not looking. And that was the most dangerous place of all. Tessa Reed had always believed she could handle anything. She was smart, ambitious, and flawless, or at least that's what she told herself. Until tonight. The gala had been in full swing, and Eric had spent more time glancing at his phone than paying attention to her. Every time he left her side, she caught him staring across the room, not at another woman, she told herself, but just looking. And she knew, deep down, who he was looking at. Amanda Carter. Tessa had been told to expect Amanda's return, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The woman who had once been discarded like yesterday's news had returned like a storm. Beautiful, confident, untouchable. Every laugh, every subtle glance, every perfectly timed entrance made Tessa's confidence crumble. She found herself pacing their shared penthouse suite later that night, heels clicking sharply against the marble floors. "Why does he keep looking at her?" she muttered under her breath. Her fingers dug into the fabric of her dress. "Why now? Why her?" Eric, standing silently by the balcony, finally spoke. "She's different." Tessa turned sharply, expecting reassurance, but all she got was the bare truth. His words, calm and measured, were like ice water to her veins. "Different how?" "Strong, powerful. She's not the woman she used to be," Eric said, not hiding his fascination. Tessa's stomach churned. "You mean, she's dangerous?" Eric nodded. "Exactly that." And Tessa realized with a sinking heart, Amanda was more than a memory, more than a name in the past. She was a force that could destroy everything they had built, and she hadn't even started yet. That night, Tessa lay awake in their shared bedroom, mind racing, paranoia gnawing at her. Every text, every conversation, every glance Eric had now seemed to revolve around Amanda. Tessa's carefully constructed world, one built on seduction, manipulation, and ambition, was starting to crack. And Amanda hadn't even made her next move. Eric couldn't focus. It had been weeks since the gala, and Amanda Carter's presence haunted him like a ghost he couldn't exorcise. Her image, her confidence, the way she had walked into that room, it played on a loop in his mind, relentless and unyielding. He tried to bury it in work. He tried to drown it in Tessa's arms, in meetings, in deadlines. But every spreadsheet, every deal, every boardroom conversation had her shadow lingering over it. The hardest part? She hadn't even touched him. She hadn't spoken to him outside polite, controlled exchanges. And yet, he couldn't get her out of his head. At the office, he found himself scanning incoming emails, subconsciously checking for her name. Every call that came through, every message, made him flinch with anticipation and disappointment when it wasn't from her. That night, he found himself wandering the city alone, past the same streets she had once walked, past the restaurants she had loved. He hated himself for it, but he couldn't stop. He was addicted to the memory of her, to the pull of a woman he had tried to erase. Meanwhile, Amanda was across town, in the quiet of her office, meticulously planning her next move. She didn't need him to obsess over her, yet. But knowing he was thinking about her, unable to fully escape her presence, made her lips curve into a small, victorious smile. Eric's obsession wasn't about love anymore. It was about control, about the need to understand how she had grown so powerful while he had been blind. And the deeper he fell into the trap she was laying, the more helpless he became. He didn't see the chessboard, he was just a piece moving exactly where she wanted him. And Amanda, in the calm of her office, whispered to herself, "Soon, very soon, you'll realize just how much you've underestimated me, Eric Knight." The game was no longer just about revenge. It was about reclaiming power, and she had him exactly where she wanted him. The city lights sparkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elijah Cole's office. Amanda Carter sat across from him, her posture perfect, her eyes sharp, yet alert. "You've done well," Elijah said, leaning back in his chair, fingers steepled. "The way you've moved against Eric, subtle, calculated, devastating without being detected, is impressive. Few people could do what you've done." Amanda's lips curved into a faint smile. "I don't do this for praise, I do it for results." He chuckled softly. "I like that, and that's why I'm offering you something more." Her brow arched. "More?" "Yes." Elijah leaned forward, eyes glinting with both curiosity and admiration. I have access to a network of investors and strategic contacts that could give you leverage on a scale you haven't yet imagined. You could corner Eric's empire, make him realize that losing you wasn't just a mistake, it was catastrophic. Amanda's heartbeat quickened slightly. Power, influence, control. Everything she had worked toward amplified beyond her current reach. And what's the catch? She asked cautiously. Elijah's smile was slow, measured. There's always risk. Deals like this require trust, and partnerships like this, well, they're rarely without complications. And, he added, lowering his voice, you might find yourself distracted in ways you're not used to. Amanda's gaze narrowed. Distracted how? He leaned back, casually placing a hand on the edge of the desk. By me. Her chest tightened, a mixture of surprise, caution, and something else she hadn't expected. Desire? Perhaps. She had been so consumed by Eric, by revenge, by reclaiming herself, that she hadn't allowed herself to consider temptation. Interesting, she murmured. You're offering power and distraction, a dangerous combination. Elijah's grin widened. Exactly, but I have a feeling you can handle it. You've already proven you can destroy a man without ever touching him. Amanda considered his words carefully. She didn't need him. She could succeed on her own, but the opportunity he presented was too powerful to ignore, and the pull of his presence, sharp and commanding, stirred something she hadn't felt in a long time. All right, she said finally, her voice steady. I'll play your game for now, but remember this, I'm in control. Elijah's eyes sparkled with admiration. I wouldn't expect anything less. As Amanda left his office that night, a storm of possibility and danger swirled around her. She had power at her fingertips, and a man who could be both ally and temptation by her side. One thing was certain. The stakes had just grown higher. And Amanda Carter? She was ready for the challenge. Amanda sat in the quiet of her penthouse office, the city lights stretching out beneath her like a sea of possibilities. A confidential file lay open on her desk, the result of weeks of investigation. Her eyes scanned the documents, heart pounding with a mixture of rage and satisfaction. Eric's betrayal had been bad enough sleeping with her best friend, discarding her without a second thought. But the deeper truth was worse. Tessa hadn't just seduced Eric on a whim. She had planned it. Every move, every lie, every whispered manipulation had been designed to destroy Amanda's life. The divorce, the loss of property, the humiliation, all orchestrated. Amanda's lips pressed into a thin line. They thought I'd never find out. Her fingers hovered over her laptop. There were emails, bank transfers, and private messages that proved the depth of the conspiracy. Eric had willingly allowed her life to crumble, and he hadn't even tried to hide it. She felt a surge of power unlike anything she had known before. Knowledge was her weapon now. The man who had destroyed her life had left a trail of breadcrumbs, and she was ready to use every single one. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elijah. Everything going according to plan? Amanda typed back. More than he realizes, and now it's personal. Because it wasn't just about business anymore. It was about justice. It was about showing Eric Knight that betrayal, arrogance, and cruelty had consequences. She leaned back in her chair, staring out at the city. Soon he would see that the woman he discarded wasn't just back, she was unstoppable and exacting, a revenge that cut deeper than any financial loss. Secrets, lies, and betrayal had brought her to this moment, and she would make them regret ever underestimating her. Eric Knight's office felt colder than usual. The skyline glittered outside, a reminder of the empire he thought he controlled until now. Reports piled up on his desk. Numbers that had once been predictable were now unpredictable. Deals he had counted on had slipped away. And most importantly, the whispers of a mysterious investor gaining influence in his rival companies were growing louder. He had a sinking feeling, one he couldn't shake. Someone was moving against him. Someone precise, intelligent, and terrifyingly calculated. Across town, Amanda Carter sat in her high-rise office, the glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. The moment had come. Weeks of planning, careful alliances, and subtle manipulation all culminated in this. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she executed a series of transfers, gaining controlling shares in companies Eric relied on. Each move strengthened her position and weakened his. Within hours, she had quietly secured leverage over a large portion of Eric's empire, all without his knowledge. The power shift was complete. Amanda leaned back, a small, victorious smile tugging at her lips. She had not only survived the betrayal and heartbreak, she had thrived. And now, she was in control of the very empire that had once crushed her. Meanwhile, Eric stared at his latest financial report, disbelief and fear gnawing at him. How is this happening? He muttered, fingers gripping the edge of his desk. Tessa hovered nearby, her own panic rising. Eric, something's going on. The board. They're listening to someone else. Eric's eyes went cold as the realization hit him. Amanda. It had to be her. She was behind this. He had underestimated her. He had discarded her. And now, she was untouchable. Across the city, Amanda raised her glass of champagne to the skyline. Cheers, she whispered to herself. To the new era, and to the man who thought he could destroy me. The woman who had once been powerless had become a queen, and Eric Knight was finally beginning to understand the consequences of his betrayal. Eric Knight had always believed he was untouchable. Wealth, power, charm. He had used them like weapons, bending the world to his will. But tonight, in the quiet of his office, he realized just how wrong he had been. Board members he had trusted were questioning his decisions. Investors he had relied on were shifting alliances. Deals that should have been sealed were unraveling, slipping right into Amanda Carter's control. Every report he opened, every call he answered, every email he read, it was like watching his empire quietly bleed, and he knew who was behind it. Amanda. The thought was poison. He had spent years thinking of her as weak, replaceable, a woman he could discard without consequence. And yet, here she was, 2 years later, orchestrating his downfall with precision, patience, and a brilliance he hadn't seen coming. Tessa's voice trembled beside him. Eric, what do we do? He shook his head, jaw tight. We fight. We have to fight. But fight meant playing on her terms, and that was a game he had already lost. Amanda had anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and stayed 3 steps ahead. He was trapped in a war he didn't even realize he had entered. Meanwhile, Amanda stood atop her office terrace, champagne in hand, watching the city she had conquered. Her empire had grown, her influence had expanded, and Eric Knight's carefully built world was crumbling silently under her hand. She didn't feel satisfaction yet, that would come later. For now, she allowed herself a quiet, private smile. The man who had humiliated her, betrayed her, and tried to erase her existence was finally learning a bitter lesson. Power is earned, not taken. And Amanda Carter had earned hers. The city glittered beneath her like a kingdom conquered. Amanda Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her high-rise office, arms crossed, the cool night air brushing against her face. She let herself savor the moment not with arrogance, but with a deep, intoxicating sense of justice fulfilled. 2 years of heartbreak, betrayal, humiliation, and planning had led her here. Eric Knight, the man who had shattered her life, was finally seeing the consequences of every selfish choice he had ever made. She could feel it, even without hearing it. The whispers in the city, the cautious glances, the sudden hesitations of his once loyal investors. Every subtle shift, every deal slipping from his grasp, was a reflection of her careful strategy. He had been blind to her power, blind to her intelligence, blind to the fire she had spent years cultivating in silence. And now he was forced to face it. Eric Knight had called her, the first time in months. His voice, normally commanding and certain, was tight with tension. "Amanda, we need to talk." She smiled faintly as she agreed. "Of course, Eric. Come to my office tomorrow, 10 o'clock. It was almost poetic, the way he had to come to her, the woman he had discarded like an afterthought. She imagined his suit perfectly tailored, his expensive watch gleaming, his ego trying desperately to mask the fear she knew was there. The next morning, Amanda greeted him in her office. She stood tall, dressed in a sharp, tailored suit that screamed confidence, her hair cascading perfectly over her shoulders. Every inch of her said, "I am untouchable." Eric entered, stiff, controlled, and trying desperately to maintain the power he had lost. But Amanda saw through the facade immediately. "You look different," he said, almost breathless. Amanda arched an eyebrow. "So do you. But different doesn't mean better, Eric. You should have realized that 2 years ago." He took a seat, rubbing his hands together, trying to focus, trying to fight. "Amanda, I didn't know. I underestimated you. You underestimated me, yes," she interrupted, calm and cold as steel. "You thought betrayal and humiliation could erase me? You thought discarding me would be easy, but I am not a woman who breaks. I am a woman who rebuilds, stronger, smarter, and with a plan you could never see coming." Eric's jaw tightened. He could feel the weight of her words, and for the first time in his life, he felt powerless. "You've taken everything," he said, voice low, almost a whisper. Amanda shook her head slowly. "No, Eric. I didn't take anything. You gave it all away. You gave away your respect, your honor, your chance at ever truly understanding me. Everything I have now, my empire, my power, my life I built. You destroyed yourself by underestimating me." Eric's eyes darkened. "What do you want from me?" Amanda stepped closer, letting her presence fill the room. She didn't need to raise her voice. The power in her calm, controlled words was enough. "I don't want anything from you," she said. "Not now, not ever. You've already lost everything that mattered. My love, my trust, my loyalty. You've destroyed any chance of reconciliation. And now, you get to live with the consequences of your own choices." Her words hit harder than any financial blow, any legal maneuver, any whispered rumor she had spread through the city. She wasn't just victorious, she was untouchable. Eric's fists clenched on the desk. You're ruthless." Amanda smiled softly, a trace of satisfaction in her eyes. "I'm not ruthless. I'm free." She turned, walking toward the window. The city stretched beneath her, shimmering like a world she had taken back and rebuilt in her image. "You'll always remember me, Eric," she said, her voice low, steady. "Not because I destroyed you, but because you underestimated me. And that mistake will follow you forever." Eric remained silent, the weight of his failures settling over him like a shroud. He had lost not just the woman he loved, But the man who had once thought he could control everything, and in losing her, he had lost himself. Amanda exhaled, a deep cleansing breath. She had her revenge, yes, but more importantly, she had reclaimed her life, her power, and her peace. She wasn't defined by betrayal anymore. She was defined by her triumph, her resilience, and the woman she had become. Later that evening, Amanda stepped out onto her terrace, watching the city lights sparkle like fireflies below. She thought of the past, of pain and heartbreak, and she let it go. Because she didn't need revenge anymore. She didn't need Eric to fall or to pay. She had risen, she had won, and she was unstoppable. Amanda Carter had survived. She had conquered, and the world, all of it, was hers. Epilogue. 6 months had passed since Amanda Carter faced Eric Knight one final time. In that half year, her life had transformed completely, and not just because of the empire she had built or the deals she had secured. She had reclaimed herself in every possible way. Amanda's office, now a corner suite in one of the tallest buildings in the city, overlooked a skyline that felt like a reflection of her own, rise bright, bold, unstoppable. Her name was whispered in boardrooms, spoken with respect, sometimes envy, often admiration. Elijah Cole, her trusted ally and occasional temptation, had become a powerful friend and confidant. Together, they continued building ventures that challenged old powers and created new opportunities. But the best part? Amanda did it entirely on her own terms. She sipped her morning espresso on the terrace, the sunrise spilling gold across the city. The wind teased her hair, and she smiled not because she had defeated Eric Knight, but because she had finally found peace. She had survived the betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation, and emerged stronger, smarter, and untouchable. Her phone buzzed with a congratulatory message from a business partner. She typed back, her fingers confident and steady. The best is yet to come. Amanda Carter had learned the ultimate lesson. True power wasn't about revenge or even wealth. It was about freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to thrive, freedom to rise above anyone who tried to hold her down. And as the city awakened beneath her, Amanda knew, without a shadow of doubt, that her story was only just beginning. She was no longer defined by the past. She was defined by herself,